Just to be sure, there's a spoiler. 12 years after its inception, Rick and Morty is still finding ways to reinvent itself, and a risky series first thankfully just paid off. Although the show faced criticism after Justin Roiland's departure, no one can deny Rick and Morty's creativity, as Season 7 was full of huge gambles that didn't all pay off. Episode 8, Rise of the Numbericons. The movie sidelined Rick completely for the very first time, cementing it as Rick and Morty's worst-rated episode yet. As a result, the disappointing reception could have deterred the franchise from taking more risks, but this hasn't been the case. Instead, Season 8 has come back strong, offering fun new storylines while continuing to experiment with episode formats. Sure, the series has attempted to appease fans by bringing back fan-favorite characters like Birdperson and Birddaughter. Additionally, Rick and Morty featured the Wubba Lubba dub catchphrase for the first time in years, further emphasizing the attempt to win over long-term viewers. However, Season 8 is still producing some series firsts, and the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly decided to explore an entirely new dynamic that the show hasn't previously committed to throughout its 12-year history. Welcome to Movie Spy. The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly focused on Rick and Morty, but not our versions. Hillbilly Rick and Arcade Morty were at the heart of Episode 3. Despite all the incredible side characters Rick and Morty has at its disposal, it has never taken the spotlight completely away from its protagonists until now. Plenty of past episodes have made characters like Beth, Jerry, and Summer the central focus of the story, but Rick and Morty usually still have a big presence in these outings. Likewise, Valkyric gave Rick his first true solo episode without Morty after Season 7 did the opposite. But the series has never sidelined both main characters for almost the entire duration, at least until the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly. While the show's main versions of Rick and Morty do feature during the beginning and end of the episode, the adventure mainly revolves around Homesteader Rick and Arcade Morty, with plenty of other alternate versions of the characters appearing throughout. Homesteader Rick takes the starring role, as the episode revolves around him taking revenge on the Rick clones who shot him while freeing the Morty clones who had been captured. Arcade Morty is also ever-present, as despite not being quite as involved in the action, he is crucial to the adventure's conclusion, making them the episode's main protagonists. Usually, an episode revolving around someone like Summer still sees either Rick or Morty playing a big supporting role, but both main characters barely featured in Season 8, Episode 3. This decision was undoubtedly a massive gamble after the backlash Morty's solo episode received. But even without the main versions of Rick and Morty, the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly still managed to thrive. Focusing on alternate versions of Rick and Morty's protagonists was a worthwhile gamble. Taking the spotlight away from the protagonists could easily have backfired. But the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly proved to be entertaining. Considering Rick and Morty are imperative to making the show so popular, moving away from the main versions of the characters had the potential to go very wrong. But thankfully, the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly has been Season 8's most unique episode yet. While people will always have debates over their favorite adventures, seeing what became of the Citadel after it was destroyed in Rick and Morty Season 5 was extremely compelling, especially from the perspective of those living in what remained of the iconic location. While it would have been fun for the show's protagonists to properly explore the Citadel's remains, it was far more engaging to see this location through the eyes of the locals. Homesteader Rick being the only Rick to reside in the Morty part of town was a fascinating prospect, and seeing the Rick clones use the Morty clones for their own gain was much more exciting from Arcade Morty's point of view, considering he actually lives in fear of this trauma. Seeing the similarities and differences between Homesteader Rick, Arcade Morty, and the show's main protagonists was a breath of fresh air and made it clear that alternate versions of the central characters are just as interesting as the original duo. It also makes the prospect of Arcade Morty appearing in the future more enticing, and I hope Rick and Morty continues taking these kinds of risks, especially since the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly is my personal highlight of Season 8 so far. Thanks for watching.